Welcome everybody. Now that these have had some time to cook, I think it's time that we actually got down to business. Now, a funny thing happened before I started actually recording this video. Well, I actually started recording this video about 20 times, and I kind of ended up in a situation where I kept wanting to talk about so many things that I was never really able to stay on track, because the topic of an Oversoul or the Oversoul group is so extensive, especially when you want to introduce the greater cosmology of the entire multidimensional spectrum. It can really be a tough place to find where do I start, what do I do? And so I luckily had sort of an intervention kind of moment. For those of you who have been listening to me or watching my videos recently, you've noticed that sometimes the cadence of my voice will sometimes change, and I have actually allowed a higher aspect of self, a higher multidimensional self, to sort of step in, and that's what I've been doing with my readings, and that's what I've been doing over the course of the last few years, further developing the capacity to hold on to that presence and let that higher self, that higher expression, take over. And that is exactly what is happening right now with this video. Of course, I'm still me, but I'm also holding more of me in me than I do during my waking day, just kind of going around as, Nico. So, that being said, maybe we should start there. You are more than what you think you are as well. You are more than the expression that you carry around walking through life every single day. In fact, the part of you that is having this experience in the lower realms, the lower physical realms, is an expression of an Oversoul, which is an expression of the higher self, which is an individuated expression of Source. And one of the things about that can be kind of interesting is that we kind of see that once we get into this idea that we are actually a growing expression of a larger expression, we can understand where over the course of our development and our spiritual work, and our spiritual awakening, our spiritual growth, we will start to encounter other expressions also growing into larger expressions of a greater whole. Now, there are many Oversoul collectives or many Oversoul groups incarnate on this planet, and every single Oversoul group is comprised of a population almost pretty much the size of Sacramento. And it's a large group of people all going through this process of collecting and gathering experience to, of course, carry back through Oversoul, which of course carries and transmits that energy back through the higher self, the I Am Presence, all the way back into Source Infinite Creator Consciousness. When we have Oversoul groups start to activate in their spiritual growth cycle, their spiritual evolution, their raising of their consciousness, their ascension, there is a push for a movement of certain populations of those groups or entire groups to actually start connecting and interacting with one another more, because all of those expressions, all of those individuated expressions of that Oversoul are actually contributing to the evolution of that Oversoul experience. So what happens, essentially, is when a certain Oversoul population starts to raise in their frequency and start to turn on and become more adept and more enlightened and more spiritually and consciously rising through dimensional frequencies, 4, 5, 6, they start to all lift that population or that Oversoul group up. The Oversoul and the higher self then start to send new experiences and new expressions and new energies, and yes, oftentimes new phenomena or even new skills, new abilities that actually start to wake up within that population. when we have these experiences, they can actually awaken also new potentials within these individual expressions. Individual expressions being you, being me, being your friends, your family. Now, your Oversoul group itself, if you want to talk about the idea of soulmates, or you want to talk about the idea of twin flames, everyone in your Oversoul group is your soulmate. You all have the same Oversoul. You are all working through that same branch that goes back to the bigger branch that is the individuated I am higher self presence, which goes all the way through a multitude of dimensions and densities all the way back to source. And even through that experience, that extension, going through a multitude of dimensions, a multitude of densities, consciousness, and realities, we also see other larger soul groups or soul collectives that you are connected to. Some of you may have connections to certain types of cosmic or galactic groups out there. For those of you who are interested in studying more of the starseed cosmology and things like that, that might actually have something to do with a group or a collective that you're a part of. For those of you that have been curious about me, I don't think it needs to be said, but obviously there is a lot of Lyran running through me. There's also, a high opportunity for even certain collectives of angelic groups and angelic expressions to be running through that I am presence that you also share on the higher levels. Now we're getting way up there in terms of dimensions, in terms of layers and levels of consciousness. So I digress. Let's get back to what we're doing here. When we talk about the Oversoul, expressing itself. It's sort of a microcosm of that experience. It's expressing itself in individuated expressions as sort of a mirror of the higher self expressing itself in higher expressions over the multiverse. There you go. For those of you who are interested, though, in sort of categorizing this, or maybe interested in attributing this to maybe a certain dimension of consciousness, the Oversoul itself is kind of on two different levels. There's the Oversoul group consciousness level, which is the 8th dimension, and then there is the Oversoul head level, or the Oversoul crown level. Some people might call it the Oversoul head or the Godhead. I'm hesitant to call it a Godhead just because of the connotation, but that's something you might encounter out there, and that's more of a 9th dimensional level. The higher self runs through the spectrum of all expressions everywhere. That's why it's also referred to as the multidimensional self. When you have a certain group of people within a soul group start to express higher vibrations of light, higher levels of consciousness, and higher expressions of source consciousness and that I am presence through themselves, opportunities to connect through different types of experiences with other members of that group turn on. They get attracted to one another to take on certain work, take on certain jobs, and the theme of the 2020s in a big way is getting Oversoul groups together, bringing all expressions of comparable levels of consciousness together within each soul group to actually accelerate the evolution and the ascension of that entire group. And the more people come together within those groups, the more people start to work together, whether they're physically coming together in migration or they are doing it at a distance. There's really no such thing as distance, but they're doing it as a distance, working globally. What is happening is they are raising the vibration of their individual Oversoul collective, which of course in turn raises the vibration of the global collective, creating the collective shift, which is what is going on right now. Over the course of that experience, of course, people will have an opportunity to have experiences with members of their soul group, or experiences with soul mates. Now, some of these will be relationships, yes, romantic relationships, but sometimes they're not romantic relationships. Sometimes these will come in the form of familial relationships. Sometimes they will be really good friends. Sometimes they will be your kids. It all depends on how this shows up. They could be life-changing business partners. They could be life-changing spiritual compatriots. Sometimes soulmate experiences themselves also turn into the opportunity or make available the opportunity for, yes, a twin flame connection or a twin flame activation or a twin flame relationship. But once again, the same line of thinking applies. Not all twin flame connections are romantic in nature. It's not about coming together to balance the masculine and feminine. It's got nothing to do with settling past life karma. It's really about members of the same Oversoul group. Remember, a very large population. We're talking about in the hundreds of thousands that have reached a point in their levels of consciousness where they are actually mutually enhancing, elevating, and ascending one another as well as all around them. The reason they're considered twin flames is because these fractals, these essences, these balls of light that are expressions of Source are twin in their brightness. They are twin in their intensity. It's not about a certain type of romantic story or a certain type of romantic experience. A twin flame connection doesn't really express itself unless both parties or all parties involved, because sometimes you can have triple flames, sometimes you can have quadruple flames, are all at a similar level of consciousness, or a comparable level of spiritual consciousness, ability, and commitment in their growth and evolution and their expansiveness. Twin flame is really a status. It is not a unique, singular individual. Soulmates are members of your Oversoul group. Each of them carries the potential to become a twin flame or a triple flame or a quadruple flame. Maybe you have a twin flame relationship with somebody who is a twin flame romantically, but you could also have a triple flame relationship over here with a band of brothers going out and being superheroes. It's something to think about. If you wish to connect with a member of your Oversoul group, or you wish to draw in more members of your Oversoul group, it's actually relatively easy, and it's especially available right now. The energies of what the collective is going through at this time, as well as what is raising in the collective consciousness, is not only making it available, but as I've said before, a lot of Oversoul groups and a lot of Oversoul heads are sort of already making that happen. So you're just moving along with the flow that's already happening or already occurring. What you want to do, though, is make sure that you know that you are inviting a member of your group into your life. And not all relationships or connections are going to be of a certain type of nature. When you want to connect, you have to come at it from a place of open-hearted acceptance and with the pure intention to work for your Oversoul collective, and of course, therefore, be in service to your higher I Am presence. But also at the same time, make sure that it is in the best interest of all concerned. Over the course of the last decade, the 20-teens, there's been a lot of mistakes made when it comes to maybe documenting or explaining or illustrating the soul kindred or soulmate or twin flame experience. And if a person is trying to create that kind of connection or create an opportunity to have such a connection with expectations that are too rigid or too limiting, or perhaps full of judgment or distortion or fear, or perhaps they are informed by feelings of lack or loneliness, then it's not necessarily going to have its best chance for success, because you will have an opportunity always to bump into your Oversoul group. We're talking a large population, right? The population of Sacramento, sometimes bigger. It's just a matter of allowing yourself to have the experiences that will let you grow, as opposed to funnel into one type of desire that is informed by maybe lower drives. These experiences are meant to be kept sacred because they are sacred encounters, all of them, whether they turn out to be familial, platonic, or romantic, and should be treated with the utmost respect and reverence. That did not happen for much of the 20 teens. If you wish to call in members of your soul group or your soul family, you can do so in meditation. This video is charmed, imbued, encoded, charged, enchanted, however you want to phrase it, with the frequency and the energy for allowing for magnetism of that experience to magnetize to the applicable experience that is right for anyone who is viewing it, who chooses to accept it. You have to do so with your own free will. So you have ample opportunity. If you are interested in maybe just in issuing your own request, however you wish to issue your own request, just simply go within. And whether in ceremony or in meditation, however you wish to do it, come back to yourself, come back to your heart, and focus on your higher heart. For those of you who are familiar with my video on connecting with the higher heart, or maybe if you want to check that out after this, follow the link below. And concentrating your energy on drawing in, again, that divine, pristine light of source consciousness that you are and that you are connected to, taking you all the way back to source, through the Oversoul, through the higher Oversoul, through the higher self, the I Am Presence, your multidimensional expressions, all the way back to source, and simply and honestly and openly now intend and command, I am ready to receive the company of my brethren, of my Oversoul group. You could say my Oversoul collective. You can say my Oversouls collective, however you wish to phrase it. I call in the most mutually complementary inclusion to my spiritual experience, to my evolution, to my ascension process from my Oversoul group and my Oversoul collective. May the work that we do together, the experiences we have together, not only mutually enhance, elevate, and expand our experience, our abilities, and our growth, but also extend out to the entirety of our Oversoul collective. I surrender this to Source, I surrender this to my Oversoul, I surrender this to my higher self, however you want to phrase it. Welcome. So be it. And that's all you really have to do. Now, if you wish to dress it up, just be mindful that you might be narrowing things a little bit. Trying to funnel it into saying that you are wanting this for a romantic partnership exclusively, or you want this for a particular arrangement exclusively, might not necessarily bring you the experience that you're looking for, because if that is not mutually complementary, if it is not the right vibrational match, and if it will not actually serve the enhancement, evolution, and growth and ascension of the entirety of your Oversoul collective, then it may take longer to happen for everyone to grow into that space. So it may not happen instantaneously, it may not happen very quickly, or it may not happen at all, but you will be introduced to an experience that actually gets you ready to have the right experience, if that makes sense. When it comes to the idea of soulmates and twin flames as sort of carriages for ideal love or ideal romance and that kind of exchange, I feel like that is a bit of conditioning that we really do need to work on letting go. There is no reason that a person's true love or life partner or forever person, if that's what you want, or however you want to go about navigating your interpersonal relationships, has to be a part of your Oversoul group or your Oversoul collective. And it's important to understand that. Sometimes Oversouls and Oversoul groups have different relationships with one another. Certain Oversouls make certain agreements with other Oversouls that are currently incarnate on this planet, and they have different interactions. Sometimes they are just coming as lessons, sometimes, yes, they are more involved. There's a lot of different ways that these kinds of interactions can substantiate for us. It's important not to try and force it through a very specific type of expression or manifestation in your life if you want to have it. Now, I think that that is good enough for now. And so I am actually going to let you guys go. Thank you so much for coming and visiting and hanging out and enjoying this energy and listening to this topic with me. I will be coming back very soon with a guided meditation on connecting to your Oversoul group and your Oversoul collective. However, one more important thing before I let you go: if you are interested in further expanding your beingness, as well as connecting to the multitudes of collectives, as well as your own soul collective, and delving deeper into unity consciousness, please consider trying out the Sunday Unity meditations. They were founded by Sandra Walter. You know she's a favorite of mine, definitely a role model when it comes to spiritual growth and ascension. I will put links in the down bar below to her Facebook page, as well as her Christ Light Expansion meditation. It's a trip. It's absolutely fantastic, and if you are interested in delving deeper into being able to embody more of your I Am presence, as well as expressing yourself on a more multidimensional level and expanding and accelerating your ascension and evolution, check out those Sunday Unity meditations. I am on them every week, so please check it out. Again, follow the links below. Thank you so much for stopping by, and I can't wait to come back with a guided meditation about connecting to your Oversoul group and collective. Take care.